Welcome back, everybody. It is January 31st of 2022, the last day of the month, and we had big markets close today. We have a cryptocurrency closing coming up. But before we get going, I want to clear something up, a little misunderstanding. So a lot of popular opinion and comments on my YouTube channel is people think I'm a boomer, and I'm sorry to disappoint you out there, but I am not a boomer. I missed the cutoff by 3 years. So I appreciate the comments, some lively comments in there. And if you see any of the scam comments, please feel free to delete those, block them from the channel, report them. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why YouTube and Twitter and social media channels cannot eliminate those spam bot comments. But anyways, I wanted to just put that out there. Please feel free to delete those comments and help us keep up with all that. I'm sure everybody is annoyed by it. But anyways, the markets did finish pretty good today. We had a good ending to the month. NASDAQ was up quite a bit, 3.4%, S&P up 1.9%, Dow Jones up 1.7%. So it was a good, strong finish to the end of the month, digesting all of the Fed speak and everything and the non-event that it was. And as we get closer to March and the next Fed meeting, there'll be a little bit more to digest, and we'll see what comes out of the Fed board members. As we get closer, they're all starting to come out and talk about what they really think individually, what their opinions are, things like that. And markets, as you know, do react to all kinds of news. It's just investors want to hedge their bets and protect themselves from any potential downside. But let's take a look at Bitcoin and crypto here. And today we had a little bit of a pump day. Bitcoin was up probably 6-7% today, I think. Yeah, it looks like about 5% today, but some of the cryptos did really well. Mana was up, has been up probably about 20% today. Yep, Mana alone was up 20% today. So was Engine Coin, Sandbox. So the metaverse play was a good play for today. So let's take a look at the daily here, and we'll go ahead and we'll look at Bitcoin on the daily. Like I said, we have our monthly closing coming up. So we are still operating on our thesis of the death cross bottoming process. And we're still looking at that 35K bottom to hold. We were calling for 36,000 range. We bottomed, closing bottom. We wicked down, of course, but the closing bottom was 35K. We've been uphill ever since. And what everybody is kind of looking for, potentially all the analysts out there in the space, is maybe a little bit of a rollover and then test and then go back into a retracement. And to be clear, what we're talking about is we're looking for potential of a little bit more of a test to the downside. That 35,000 level could wick down to that 33 again, but looking for a little bit of a drop, test that bottom, then go off into a retrace into that, the Fibonacci retracements that you typically see at the 618 to 702 from peak to peak. And you do use the wicks on these, which would put the 618 at about 55,000, 702, 58,000. So somewhere in that, the 0.5 fib retracement, it could reject there, but generally you're going to retrace between the 0.5 and the 0.618 before you see a rejection where price could potentially do something like this, kind of roll up here into this area, and then potentially could roll off like that. So that's something that is a possibility, and it could come somewhere in this 0.5 to 0.618 range. So that's what we're looking for, put in that higher low and then head back down, and then it could bounce if it's going to continue, or it could roll down. So what the thesis is and what we were calling for, just so we're clear, is that the 35K is a local bottom for this area that we're in right now, for this short-term period that we're in of a retracement. Now this could take several months for the retracement to roll over and go back down, could take you out to the mid to the end of the year. That's when we're going to find out, potentially testing these lows, and we may end up retesting. If we get rejected at that 618 and start moving back down, we could test some of these lower lows, even that July low. If that breaks that $29,000, $30,000 level, then we're going to go down and probably retest the previous all-time high at 19,000-20,000 that was set back in 2017, 2018, right there. Looks like a little bump right now compared to what we have going on here. But if it continues on, breaks through the 618, 702, and continues on from there, then we may be off to some of those levels that I talked about the other day in terms of extensions that we were looking for into that 70 to 80,000 range. And before we see another, retracement there as price continues, which is what it does. It peaks and retraces, and we could just kind of see this pattern continuing on as we go along. But a couple of things to note of interest is that the markets have already hit their typical extensions from the previous cycle high and low, which is going to be that 4236 extension, 4.236. So this is your September 2017-18 high, and the market low was right here off of that cycle. We've already hit that 4.236 extension. So that is why many people are thinking that the market is done for this cycle. We're going to head off into more after this retracement here, this bounce that we're looking for, which could take a few months for all this to play out. We're looking at this bottoming process to continue over the next couple of weeks before we see that retracement really kick in. And we're kind of in that process now, kind of like we were over here in this area. So if we have already reached our extension, and when you look at the total altcoin market, has done the same thing. So there is a thinking out there that this cycle has already reached its full cycle extensions. The altcoin market has already breached the 4.236. And if you remember, and we'll take a look at some of these altcoin charts, as far as the altcoins go, several of them have already peaked and have already gone through their full cycle. So it's kind of interesting to take a look at a couple of these to determine, are we through? If you look at Ethereum coming off previous all-time highs, Ethereum's already gone through that 4.236 extension. It peaked in May and then came back and peaked again, and it's been downhill ever since. So, are the altcoins done? Have we already had an altcoin season? And it wasn't like everything ran all at the same time. In the last few months, we've seen, and even during this time, we saw a few of the altcoins kind of run all off on their own, like Axie Infinity was kind of doing its own thing. Solana was kind of doing its own thing based on different fundamentals that it had going on. But a lot of these coins now are retracing, and a lot of them have already run through their cycle. Crypto.com, that had its big peak when all of the news came out about crypto. Matic had a lot of good fundamental things going on, but Matic has already peaked quite a bit. So the real thing that we're waiting to see is, are we going to see another altcoin season? And that remains to be seen. If Bitcoin does get a retracement, once it's done going on its run, then the altcoins should fire up and follow behind. And generally, they're all going to run at one time. But like I said, in this previous cycle that we're in right now, we've seen a lot of the altcoins just kind of take off and do their own thing. Some of these are newer coins to Coinbase. I'm using the Coinbase pricing on a lot of these because that's the exchange that I use. So I'm not getting complete history on a lot of these, but like Mana, we had all the, metaverse news. So all of these metaverse coins popped at the same time. Of course, Dogecoin with the meme, cycle pump back here when when Elon went on Saturday Night Live. It's been kind of downhill ever since. SHIB, the same thing, had that big pop and kind of downhill ever since. But some of these other coins that have been around for a while, like Axie Infinity kind of went on its run. Polkadot has been on its run. Litecoin is another one that, kind of peaked, and it hasn't really, run again since the initial run back in May. A lot of the altcoins ran in May right after Bitcoin. So one of the theories is, and one of the lines of thinking out there is that Bitcoin is done for this cycle. We looked at it the other day in the video where the peak was actually here. We've gone into an irregular correction. Bitcoin actually went on to a delayed run like the altcoins do afterwards. So a lot of the altcoins ran right here in this area of May after Bitcoin retraced and started falling off. That's where a lot of the altcoins ran, but not all of them, just a few of them. So we'll have to wait and see. We don't know what is in store. Typically, the capital rotation rotates out of Bitcoin into the altcoins for the final run of the season, and then withers off into that bear market consolidation phase like we've seen here. And to give you an idea, 2017, 2018 bear market lasted from December through June, July of 2019. maybe February of 2020. We had a little bit of a pop here, then it went downhill again. Then right here, February 2020, it was headed back uphill again before the March 2020 pandemic. So that was a 2 to 3 year consolidation bear market kind of cycle. This depth of the bear market here was probably November 2018 through May of 2019. So it's about 6 or 7 months. And then this longer sustained consolidation here. So it's not like everything goes to zero, although some of the altcoins potentially could drop way back down to where they came from. And that's really something that you really want to take a look at and try to make sure that you fully understand where the market could be heading and what we're looking at in terms of where a lot of these coins have come from. And when you look at the runs that some of the coins have had, if you just look at Ethereum and look at it from an all-time perspective, you can see where it came from back here, in 2017, 2018, and the prices that it was at, 100, 200, things like that, and has run, a lot of these coins have been straight up just parabolic. So the question is, how much fuel do the altcoins have in the tank for future runs, and where are the plays going to be? So we'll just have to wait and see how that goes. I'll do a little bit more in depth on altcoins tomorrow in the next video, so we can take a look at some of the things out there. I know Terra Luna, a lot of people have been on Luna and wondering what's going on with that. And you can see the life cycle of Luna. It came from basically nothing, started shooting up in 2021, February, March of 2021, and then it's just been straight uphill. And now it's basically heading back down the hill again. Will Luna bounce? We'll have to wait and see where that's ultimately going to go. But you can see the run that it's been on and what some of these charts look like. It's pretty incredible where the market was even a year and a half ago. I mean, these are basically, about a year and a half ago, where some of these prices were, well, we're back down close to where we were about a year ago on some of these, but 6 months, 8 months prior to that, before the run, a lot of these coins were trading for, change into the low dollar range, and went up and hit peaks in, $90 to $100 and more. Solana is another one that was trading for pennies not too long ago and hit some pretty good numbers. So it'll be interesting to see if we get that altcoin run. Right now, our thesis that we're waiting to see if it plays out is Bitcoin is working on that second bottom touch before it launches into a retracement. Once that retracement completes and right at the peak of it, that's when the altcoins should all start firing off all on their own before we roll back over, go back, retest these lows, and see if we're going to go into a longer, more consolidated bear market, or if we're going to be bouncing and heading back and repeating cycles again and trying to breach this previous all-time high. And with the amount of energy in the space and adoption in the space, the market overall is pretty healthy. We're just going through that cycle of the retail excitement in the market that drives prices to all-time highs. And then we have the profit taking. Of course, we had the the Fed meeting and the uncertainty in the markets that kind of drove a lot of the selling. So we're just waiting to see if the cryptocurrency market can rebound off of that. And of course, the news out there is that it may take a few months for all this to play out in terms of more long-term definitive direction from the market. So we'll just have to wait and see how it all plays out. And like I said, what invalidates any of the theories is, number one, any kind of market events, any kind of market accidents that happen with the Fed policy, and any kind of conflict abroad, any potential invasions and wars on the climate on the horizon out there that can affect things and affect markets. And then any other issues with the pandemic or things like that to pop up. So any of those events could invalidate what we're looking at, the thesis that we have right now, and the things that we're expecting. But until then, everything seems to be playing out. That 36K bottom, 35K bottom seems to be holding, and hopefully it will, and we'll see the retracement. Then we get the altcoin season, and then we'll have to see what next steps are. So until then, I hope you have a great day, and I will see you on the next video.